Right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a case file that is, well, it's gonna make you rethink every single real estate listing you ever click on. It's a chilling, true account out of Mumbai that starts off like your typical modern romance and then just rapidly spirals into an absolute nightmare.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Would you move into a home you've never even stepped foot in? I mean, in today's fast paced world, especially with online rentals, it's so tempting to just click, pay, and move, right? But as we're about to see, skipping that in person walkthrough, yeah, that can cost you way, way more than just a lost security deposit. Look, I want to drop you right into the middle of the horror here. Just listen to this. Yeah, set yourself on fire. Do it. Die, die. I am not coming to save you. Now, you might be thinking that was shouted by some intruder, right? Or an enemy. No, those words were spat out with absolute venom by a loving grandmother as she literally watched her own granddaughter burn. Her name was Aditi, a young professional living in Mumbai, and she was entirely engulfed in flames in her own apartment hallway. And while she is just suffering excruciating pain, her grandmother, her Nani, just sits there and smiles. It's horrifying. So, to understand how a totally normal, loving family got twisted into this terrifying, violent state, we gotta rewind back to the beginning. Which brings us to Section 1, The Perfect Flat's Secret. Let's look at how the nightmare began. Aditi and her fiancé, Mahesh, found what seems like the ultimate apartment online. You know the vibe, a perfect escape from Mumbai's exhausting traffic. But the contrast between their expectations and the reality was just jarring. Online, it looked like a dream. Beautiful photos, great price, brand new building, the whole shebang. But the chilling reality, well, by the time they transferred the money and actually got the keys from a neighbor, they walked into a flat that was absolutely filthy. I mean, it looked like it had been abandoned for years. And the neighbors on their floor, they were strangely terrified, wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't speak a word, and just looked like they were in constant distress. Moving on to Section 2, Ignored Warnings and Red Flags. These are the missteps that invited disaster. In their total rush to lock down this property, the couple completely missed some absolutely crucial warning signs. It's a clear chain of mistakes here. Step 1, they paid the owner online without a single final walkthrough, just trusting the pictures. Step 2, they rationalized away those fearful, silent neighbors. Oh, they just want their privacy. But step 3, actually, this is arguably the biggest mistake of all, they entirely skipped the Griha Pravesh. In Indian culture, that's the traditional housewarming ritual. It's meant to cleanse a new space and spiritually protect the people living there. By skipping it, they essentially moved into a spiritually vulnerable void. They basically left the front door wide open. All right, Section 3, the escalating paranormal torment. Trapped inside with the unseen. Once they got moved in, the real terror kicked in. Almost immediately, Mahesh has to leave town for work, leaving Aditi completely alone in this weird, dead silent apartment. And the escalation? It was terrifyingly fast. Night 1, Aditi feels this intense, heavy presence, like someone is just standing in the dark corner staring at her. Night 2, she has this vivid, horrific dream of a woman standing over a pentagram on a train, eating a child. And then, bam, exactly at 3:30 a.m., she's jolted awake because an unseen hand is physically pulling her leg. By night 3, things go totally off the rails. The forces grow bolder, literally lifting her arms and legs into the air while she's lying there completely paralyzed in bed. So, what we're looking at here is demonic manipulation. It's an entity exerting physical and psychological control over the living. We are way past creaky floorboards and weird drafts here. When Mahesh finally comes back, the malignant energy actually infects him too. He becomes wildly violent, completely losing his mind and striking Aditi. But the undeniable, terrifying proof drops a few nights later. Mahesh wakes up, paralyzed by fear, and actually watches a dark male entity standing right over the bed. It's physically moving Aditi's limbs while she sleeps, just yanking them around like a puppet. Which leads us into Section 4, A Family Turned Against Itself, the corruption of the grandmother. Desperate for some kind of help and protection, Aditi calls in her deeply religious grandmother. The hope was that her Nani's constant prayers would finally cleanse the space. But the apartment's dark energy? It didn't retreat. It consumed her. In literally just 3 days, this loving, pious woman completely stopped praying. She became aggressive, hateful, and picked these vicious fights with Aditi. And this intense psychological manipulation is exactly what led to that shocking cold open we talked about earlier. Driven completely to the edge by the entities and her grandmother's constant taunting, Aditi broke and literally set her own clothes on fire.
Amazingly, Aditi survives the fire, but she suffers these agonizing burns. While she's recovering at home, a neighbor, who actually happens to be a nurse, kindly offers to come over and change her bandages. So she's peeling off a dressing, Aditi cries out in pain, and suddenly, a disembodied, menacing voice whispers right into the nurse's ear, "Do it slowly. Do you want to die?" The haunting had gotten so incredibly powerful that it was now directly threatening outsiders who were just trying to help. No one was safe. Section 5. Built on a graveyard. The priest's horrifying revelation. Okay, at this point, Oddity's parents have seen enough. They step in and bring a spiritual priest to finally figure out what is poisoning this home. And the truth he uncovers is just staggering. They weren't dealing with a single ghost. There was the restless spirit of a murdered pregnant woman. There were two men who had died in a horrible drunk driving crash. But the biggest, most devastating twist, the haunting wasn't contained to Oddity's flat. The entire residential society was built directly on top of a shamshan, a graveyard. The whole property was cursed ground. Section 6. The final escape. Fleeing the haunted apartment. So now that the truth is out, the supernatural torment just accelerates. Dark shadow figures are appearing out on the balcony in plain sight. They're lurking right behind Aditi in the kitchen. But the final straw? The moment they finally broke? Aditi is just standing in the kitchen making tea for her parents. And suddenly, spontaneous burn blisters begin forming and popping on her skin, in broad daylight, right in front of her mother and father's eyes. It was a direct physical attack, proving the entity was trying to finish the job the fire started. Her parents immediately grabbed her, abandoned the apartment right then and there, left all the deposit money, and never looked back. So what's the actual takeaway here? What do we learn from this nightmare? First, always visit the property in person. Online photos can totally lie and hide decades of neglect. Second, you gotta speak with the neighbors before signing anything. Their silence or that look of terror in their eyes, that is a massive red flag you just can't ignore. And third, respect the spiritual and historical boundaries of a location. You can renovate a kitchen, but you cannot easily cleanse cursed ground. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. The next time you find a real estate deal online that seems just a little too good to be true, are you going to bother to ask what's actually buried beneath the floorboards? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay safe out there, do your research, and always, always trust your instincts. See you next time.